The business, motherfucker.
The Daily Read. Your source for news, politics, sports, and all things trending. Here's your host, Marcus Gentry.
And back in 2014, one of the other things that made Ebola so scary was that there was no vaccine to protect people from getting it. But in the years since, that has changed. 2 vaccines have actually been approved, and one of those vaccines, produced by Johnson & Johnson, which becomes strangely relevant in a minute, does something really interesting. It's called a mix and match vaccine. It's because it uses different shots as a way to elicit a more powerful immune response. Now, that strategy of mixing and matching shots is something that was discussed today by an FDA advisory panel. It debated whether people would be well served by, say, pairing a J&J shot with a Moderna booster or a Pfizer one. The panel heard some groundbreaking data from the NIH on that exact question. The study showed that people who got an initial shot of Johnson & Johnson saw the biggest immune response when they got a Moderna booster shot. A Pfizer booster shot was second best, providing a big jump in antibody levels, but a second shot of Johnson & Johnson vaccine resulted in the lowest increase in antibody levels.
This is the Daily Read, and I want to welcome you guys to today's show. Did anybody catch that? I just want to know, did anybody catch that? Because it sounds like to me that the government is bailing Johnson & Johnson out. Johnson & Johnson been around for a long time. They make everything from healthcare products to medication and vaccines. Now, if their product wasn't good, they shouldn't have put it out there. And I know some of y'all might have to rewind what I just played for you back to get an understanding of what I'm talking about. But what I'm trying to say is Johnson & Johnson tried to be ahead of the game by bringing out a vaccine for the coronavirus that was a one-shot vaccine. A lot of people jumped on it. A lot of people wanted it because it meant that you had to take off 1 day of work instead of 2. It also meant that you only had to get shot 1 time instead of 2 times. But now it's coming out that boosters are needed. But what he's saying is, whenever somebody gets a Johnson & Johnson shot, the booster from other shots like Moderna or Pfizer makes the person feel better or does better as far as fighting off the virus. So basically what they're saying is, if you read between the lines, Johnson & Johnson's vaccine was some garbage. They're trying to clean this up and protect Johnson & Johnson. This is some bull. If the vaccine wasn't on par with what Pfizer put out and what Moderna put out, Johnson & Johnson should have stayed out the game. You know, this is getting ridiculous, people. We're finna go a little further into this because I want y'all to fully get an understanding of what these people are saying.
Now, the panel did not vote today on whether or not to recommend mixing and matching vaccine and booster brands, but it seems like that might be on the horizon. When it comes to Johnson & Johnson boosters at large, the FDA panel today voted unanimously, 19-0, to recommend those boosters, essentially saying that they're a public health imperative since the immune response to the primary Johnson & Johnson vaccine is so low compared to Moderna and Pfizer. One panel member echoed the feelings of several of his colleagues when he said, quote, "I think this frankly was always a 2-dose vaccine." That was a big factor in the group's decision to recommend the Johnson & Johnson booster for everyone over 18 who initially received the Johnson & Johnson shot.
Now, read between the lines, people. He's saying it always should have been a 2 vaccine shot. There has not been any virus that's come out that we haven't gotten vaccinated for that doesn't take 2 shots, except for yellow fever. Most viruses, when you get a vaccine shot for it, remember when we were kids, your parent had to take you back to the doctor, or when you became parents, you had to get your child inoculated first, and then you had to turn around and bring them back on another day, and they usually shoot them in the other arm, the opposite arm, or the one they shot them in the first time. It's always been the case. Johnson & Johnson tried to be ahead of the game and be slick and put a vaccine out here that's only maybe 60% when the other vaccines were 80 to 90%. So now what they're saying is they got this thing called mixing and matching, where, you know, one vaccine, you get a booster shot from another vaccine. And they're trying to clean it up. But basically what they're saying is Johnson & Johnson's product was garbage. And if it's garbage, they should have never put it out there in the first place. This is what a lot of people be fearing when they scared to go down there and get the vaccine shot. The problem is they still need to go down there and get the vaccine shot. You know. And it's especially for you minorities out there that listen to my show. Go get your shot. Because you gotta have this understanding that this virus kills more minorities in this country than it does the white population. It's killing them too. But it kills more minorities than it does white people. This is part of the reason why those governors in Texas, Florida, and Georgia didn't want to shut down the country. When they found out that this virus was killing more minorities than than whites, that's when all this talk about why are we shutting the country down for this. That's when all this talk about that came out. Why are we sending kids home from school for this? Because they don't care about you. You got to get that understood. They care about running the money up. That's it. And if you get sacrificed or you die, hey, it's on you. Protect yourself, protect your family, protect your kids. Go down there and get that shot. But I wouldn't mess with the Johnson & Johnson. Ask for the Moderna or the Pfizer. I took the Moderna. I took 2 shots. And I'm just fine. I'm not magnetic. I'm not Magneto. I'm not running around here looking like an X-Man or nothing like that. I'm just fine. Go down there and get your shot, people. We're going to get into this first commercial break. But I just find that awfully odd that I got to get my coffee also. But I just found it awfully odd how, you know, the government is trying to protect these people. Let them fail. Put it out there. You know, don't try to clean this up. Let people know, hey, Johnson & Johnson shit is garbage. You know, maybe they need to stick to making Vaseline or baby oil, because if they need to have if someone else's booster helps the Johnson & Johnson vaccine shot, then that means Johnson & Johnson didn't do a good job in the first place. You know, so just get it understood, people, that you still need this vaccine in order to keep death from knocking at your door. But we're going to get into this first commercial break. I'm going to go get me some coffee. And when we come back,
the business, motherfucker.
The Daily Read.
I'm ready.
Camera's ready.
I'm ready. Welcome to Are You Scared talent shows. It's a new talent show that we put on TV for y'all to get used to, because these people can't act, and so we're gonna show y'all what the real deal is when you get on front of the camera and what some garbage acting look like. I tell you, garbage acting. This is Are You Scared talent shows, okay? We're gonna show y'all some acts of some talents $5,000. It really ain't $5,000. Just said $5,000 because $5,000 sound like some people want to come and join a talent show if it was paying $5,000. So I'm your host, Eric Jones. Are You Scared Talent Shows?
The business, motherfucker.
The Daily Read.
All right, Sarah, let's start with you. How do you see white identity politics influencing our national political debates?
It's become a very outsized influence. There is this sense among many voters who voted, for example, for Donald Trump, that white folks are becoming victims in this country. And you will hear people say we're becoming victims in our own country, and worrying what that is going to mean in the end, that you will lose some of your power and that the country will change in a way that you don't want to see it change.
Welcome back to the Daily Read, and I am your host, Marcus Gentry. I had to go get my coffee, people, because the rest of this show is going to be basically talking about how this white identity politics is taking control of the Republican Party and is doing great damage to this country. You got some people out here who are frightened. They're frightened of people like me and my skin color. And what they don't realize is I don't want to hurt you or nothing and take nothing from what you got. I just want my fair share of this country. My forefathers worked hard as slaves and they deserve that. I deserve that. That's all I ask. So this fear that the power structure is about to change, you know, you're going to hear later on in the show where some of these white supremacists are talking about 2050. The year 2050 is supposed to be the year that minorities, blacks and Latinos, have an equal population to the white people. And that scares a lot of white people. And I'm just going to put it out there. You know, a lot of minorities is being bamboozled and tricked into riding with this under the guise of patriotism, patriotism. And it's a bunch of bull. These people are not about patriotism. They're about destroying this country if they can't continue to have the power in this country. And that's what's going on with our politics. We're finna get into this next video because I want y'all to get a full understanding of how these people are coming.
You hear a lot of talk about identity politics, the division of America into competing tribes where ethnic and racial identity becomes a person's primary definition. It's unhelpful to the American experiment, summed up in our traditional motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one. But what's ironic is that the most politically influential form of identity politics in America is white identity politics. Once you understand that, it explains a lot about our current political divisions. Because the rise of white identity politics and its attendant anxieties about traditional constituencies losing power run through almost every fault line of our fractured politics. This is, of course, rooted in America's original sin of slavery, which contradicted the fundamental promise of the Declaration of Independence. It was expressed in decisions that counted black Americans as just 3/5 of a person. After the Civil War, President Andrew Johnson vetoed an early civil rights bill, arguing that it would create special rights for former slaves, while ex-Confederate paramilitary groups from the KKK to white leagues sought to violently reassert white supremacy while suppressing black voting rights.
Now, remember what I said earlier about how there are going to be minorities that ride with the side of white supremacy. Listen very carefully how this happens. When you have people like Condoleezza Rice and Ben Carson and I'd even go to an entertainer, Kanye West, Candace Owens, people like that. When you got these minorities who go around and say, I don't think we need equal rights acts. Everybody just need to get out here and get a job. You see, what that does is the man just said Andrew Johnson vetoed a bill that was going to give civil rights earlier than the civil rights movement to black people. But he vetoed the bill because he felt like it would give special rights to ex-slaves. He was doing it out of bigotry. Those same concepts are still going on today, but it has started to influence some of the wealthiest blacks also. Remember what I said. The reason why it's influencing some of our more wealthier blacks is because they have learned to tap dance and live within the white supremacist society. And even though the white supremacists don't like them neither, they're less likely to get harmed, shot in the back, house raided, living in red line areas, living around sewage and factories, living around gang banging. So what happens is, once they get comfortable in white society, even though the people around them smile in their face, they really don't like them neither. They start talking like them. They start listening to some of their propaganda, and then they start preaching it to other minorities. Understand how this works. Let's go a little deeper into this. There's some real talk.
Leading to segregation for a century. But white identity politics has a changing definition, because the definition of what it means to be white has changed in America. To a large extent, it is a social construct. In the 1920s, the second incarnation of the KKK rose to oppose not just blacks, but Catholics and Jews, as well as Southern European immigrants. This era also gave birth to strains of so-called scientific racism, captured in the pages of The Great Gatsby, where Tom Buchanan, the wealthy and dissolute husband of Daisy, talks about a book he's reading called The Rise of the Colored Empires and says, "Civilization's going to pieces. The idea is that if we don't look out, the white race will be utterly submerged. It's all scientific stuff. It's been proved. It's up to us, who are the dominant race, to watch out, or those other races will have control of things."
Now, the reason I want to play that, because this is very, if you got to rewind anything on this program, do it, so you can get a full understanding of what I'm talking about, how you can fight back against it. When your kids start coming home talking this nonsense that these white supremacists be saying, you got to fight against this stuff. What I'm saying is, he read a line from The Great Gatsby. That book was written back in the Jim Crow era. And the line basically, he's stating that we have to be aware of the rise of the black empires, you know, because they're going to conquer us. Listen to what Tucker Carlson talks about on Fox News. Same thing, you know, talking about how, you know, we're being invaded by Hispanics and Mexicans, and you know, pretty soon we're going to lose our identity as America. America has always been a bastard country. I said it. I'm not going to take it back. America has always been a bastard country. Our language is a bastard language. It's a mixture of Latin, English, Hispanic, African. Our language is a bastard language. Even though we call it English, our language in this country is not even our own language. We just took a conglomeration of a lot of different languages, including French, and mixed it in, and that's American English. So we've started our own identity by mixing other cultures. The thing about it is, the white and more light-skinned people have always been in control of this country, even though they've taken minority languages, minority styles, minority ways of life, and incorporated it into America. We can even go to rock and roll. The first real rock and roll star was black. Elvis Presley would even tell you. he learned at the feet of a black guitarist. So you know, people got to have this understanding that this whole white identity politics, these people are frightened when they have no reason to be. They have no reason to be. Ain't nobody out here gunning for them. They're just scared because the white privilege is about to get pulled off from under them by 2020, by 2050. You know, you can't go out here and scream at the police no more and not expect to get your head bashed in just like the black guy got his head bashed in. You've all seen it. Black guy scream at the police, they drag him out the car, beat him up, and drag him to jail. White person scream at the police, he says, yes ma'am, and gives her ticket and lets her keep moving. There's a difference in how minorities and whites are treated in this country. There's a difference. And a lot of people don't want to face that fact. Let's get into the next video clip. This is interesting.
Now, there have been repeated attempts to dress this anxiety up as something more refined, from constitutional debates about states' rights to Dixiecrat presidential campaigns to white citizens' councils that tried to rally massive resistance to desegregation. A former Grand Wizard of the KKK, David Duke, even tried to rebrand the National Association of White People before running for governor of Louisiana as a Republican in the early 1990s.
Now David Duke, the same David Duke that Donald Trump said he don't know nothing about. And remember, Donald Trump's father was actually caught at a Klan rally when he was younger. You know, so don't get this twisted, people. They've been working on this for a long time. There's a reason why Donald Trump has been able to completely dominate the Republican Party. There's a reason he has been able to do that. And a lot of people, he's more powerful than people think. Not just because he's some rich landlord out of New York. I know gang-like activity when I see it. I know mafia-type activity when I see it. In other words, I'm trying to put it in terminology where people who are not gang members can understand it, because people who listen to my show who have been involved in gangs and street life, they already know where I'm going with this. Something about this guy has riled up the biker community, the white biker community, the white militias, both the white biker community and the white militia communities have been known to be hotbeds of white supremacists. He has riled up the loyalty of these people. He's also riled up the loyalty of the white supremacists who have been embedded into our law enforcement. He has a lot of these white politicians so shook up and scared, not just for their public careers, but for their lives. See, the memo has been passed out who Donald Trump actually is. It just hasn't come out to the whole world yet. But it's something about this guy, and it's not his charisma. He's a dummy. His intellect. His daughter, now she's very smart. Donald Trump's intellect is not that great. So it's something that, some kind of power that he has behind the scenes that's causing all of this. And part of it is a white supremacist power struggle, power grab that he has. Let's get into the next clip.
Now, it's been said that history doesn't repeat, but sometimes it rhymes. So when I saw online calls for massive resistance to the election of Barack Obama in the fall of 2008, or interviewed Tea Party rally goers who brought up the year 2050 over and over again, which is when they estimated whites would become a minority in America, a sometimes subliminal form of white identity politics was hard at work. This anxiety also found expression in the early birtherism of Donald Trump and his anti-immigration policies, as well as in the infamous Unite the Right rally to stop the removal of Confederate statues in Charlottesville.
See, that whole Jews would not replace us, that rally in Virginia, West Virginia, y'all gotta understand, these people were college students. But the vast majority of them, these people were in our educational institutions, preppies. These are the men and women who are getting prepared to go into society and become lawyers, doctors, senators, congressmen. This has been a long time plan. I often talk about how we won the Civil War, but the battle with them kept moving forward behind the scenes, because most of these people didn't get incarcerated. They didn't get locked up for 20 and 30 years. They got sent back home with their tails between their legs and got treated as heroes. And they devised a plan that has just now started to take fruit. It's starting to bear fruit with Donald Trump and all of his minions.
That the power will not rest in the places where you think it should rest.
That's right. And of course, one of the many ironies of that is that the Republican Party was founded as an abolitionist party by Abraham Lincoln. So there's been a role reversal there, but that legacy of grief.
I'm going to stop it right there. I often talk about this. You have a lot of blacks out here who will get on social media and talk about, why are you minorities running around voting for Democrats anyway? Because the Democrats are the ones who tried to keep us in slavery. That's what you call propaganda. That's propaganda. Because as I've always told you, there was a role reversal back when Ronald Reagan was in office. Actually, it goes farther than Ronald Reagan. It goes back to Kennedy. John F. Kennedy, I'm going to reiterate this. John F. Kennedy brought blacks and minorities into the Democrat Party, and a lot of the white supremacists fled the Democrat Party. Most of the people in the South used to be Democrats. They're now Republicans. Because Ronald Reagan invited these people into the Republican Party because they didn't really have a home. Lincoln started the Abolitionist Party, which was the Republican Party, to stop slavery. Actually, it goes deeper than that. Stopping slavery was just a side note. It's deeper than that. Because the South was trying to break off from America and go across seas to sell the cotton and cut America out the deal. So it's more to it than just the slaves. Okay, so we're not going to get into the whole details of the Civil War, but I studied this stuff. And the South was making some backstabbing moves to break itself off from the rest of the country and start selling goods to other countries. So Abraham Lincoln put a stop to that. He put a stop to that with the Civil War. Then he also hurt the South by releasing the slaves too. So, like I said, I'm not saying that, the Civil War wasn't fought over just slavery, but there were other things that it was involved in that too. But back to this. Lincoln started the Abolitionist Party. Okay? But the Republicans have been full-fledged infiltrated and taken over by the white supremacists of this country. So when you have black people, minorities, getting on Facebook, Instagram, clowning around, playing, half of these people is don't even have a clue about the real history of this stuff. And they telling other blacks, man, why is you voting for Obama and Joe Biden? They're part of the Democrat racist party. They try to keep us in slavery. That part of the party is over with. The same people who actually was the ones trying to keep us in slavery, they're Republicans now. The same people, somebody like him or her, who want you to vote Republican, is running around with. Strange how that works. Let's go to the next clip.
4 years ago, you famously and brilliantly covered the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. With all those tributaries of the alt-right that came together there, to what extent do you think that fear of being a minority in America motivates these groups?
Oh, they explicitly said that to me. One of the leaders told me that he knew that once people of color were in power, they would treat white people as poorly as white people had treated people of color.
This is their whole fear. They have a madness going through their population of, if minorities get a little more power, we're going to try to put them in slavery or something. That's not going to happen, people. We're not interested in that. We're interested in having money, having wealth, and having our own. We can give a damn about our white next door neighbor. We can care less. We're not trying to harm you or your kids. And I don't think these people get that. That's the whole thing about fear. Fear makes people act out into and do craziness, make crazy moves.
I mean, he just made it explicit. Like, you didn't have to read in between the lines there.
Yeah, it's not that subtle when you come down to it. And yet, some folks try to dress it up with the sort of the veneer of scientific racism. This is sort of the leather elbow patch and tweed jacket variety of racism. And Sarah, you interviewed a guy named Jared Taylor, an Ivy League educated purveyor of white identity, white nationalist publications. I want to play a clip from where he lays out his worldview.
I'm going to stop it right here. Y'all, listen, people, especially you minorities out there and you whites who are not down with bigotry. Listen very carefully of how the white supremacists have infiltrated our higher learning institutions by using people like him. This man right here, if he was uneducated, he would be in the hood in a white robe trying to burn a cross in somebody's yard. But what they've done is they've taken it off the battlefield. They've taken it off the battlefield because they know they can get hurt out here now. Because we will fight back. It's not like the days of old where they can spit on you, say something to you, kick you in your rear end, and you couldn't do nothing about it because you'll get lynched by a group of men jumping off the back of a truck. So they've gotten smart with this. They've sent their kids into Ivy League schools to get educated. And they've learned how to twist the information of bigotry to fit the narrative. And like I said, they even have put this craziness into the hearts and minds of some minorities. This is weird. It's strange. It's dangerous. But you got to know what to watch out for. Listen to this very carefully, people.
and then get your response, and we'll go deeper on that. Let's hear it.
First of all, I completely reject the term white supremacy. I simply want the opportunity for my people, people of European origin, to be left alone so that we can pursue our own destiny.
Do you think recruitment is going well
Yes.
when
yes.
it comes to young people?
I am constantly impressed by the number of young people who are completely wide awake on the subject of race, who are not bamboozled and intimidated by all of this nonsense of diversity being our strength.
Now, this guy right here is a doozy. He's flat out with it. You know, just like the Donald Trumps of the world. You know, he don't feel like there should be no diversity. If it was up to a guy like him, he would throw this country back into segregation. Whites be over here and blacks be over here. Whites shop over here and blacks shop over here. If it was up to a guy like this whole country would go backwards. A man like him is very dangerous because he's not the goofball, bucktooth, country folk full of hatred and bigotry. He's the educated, elbow patch, sports coat, corduroy sports coat with the elbow patch, professor type, who's teaching another generation the proper way of utilizing racism in a more intellectual way. Understand how this is working. They're even passing laws in Texas to where when you bring out a book about the Holocaust now, you got to have books that shows the other side's version. In other words, if you talk about how Hitler killed millions of Jews, now you got to tell Hitler's side of supposedly why he killed all of them Jews, or the things that he was doing. This is crazy, but it's happening, and it's happening right in front of our faces, and some people are not even paying attention.
I mean, there's a lot going on there, but you really do hear echoes of that in conversations that have been mainstream. Jared Taylor's a fringe figure, but this idea that diversity isn't a strength is something that you hear on right-wing talk TV increasingly. How do you read the rise of the Jared Taylors of the world to the something resembling respectability of their rhetoric?
They couldn't be happier. This has been the goal all along, to mainstream these messages, get them out into the public sphere and make them normal, to normalize these kinds of messages.
Now, remember what I said, people. Their job is not to burn crosses in your yard anymore. Their job is to make the message of white supremacy more mainstream and palatable, where people can take it in and play around with it. They've created dog whistles. We're tired of our country being invaded, but they really scared that the white bloodline is finna shrink. The whole abortion thing. Jane Elliott, if you guys go look her up, she talked about how when Ronald Reagan was in office and she was helping out the Reagan administration, she was in the room with white men talking about how they had to do something about abortion because more white people are getting abortions than blacks, which is only furthering the decline of the white population. That whole abortion thing, that has nothing to do with no Christianity and the right to life. That's garbage. They've packaged it to say that. But what's really going on is they know that most minorities don't even get abortions. Most minorities had a baby, put the baby daddy on child support, and that's that on that. That's it. They have the baby and put the daddy on child support and go on about their business. Most blacks. It's the white people that's running down to the doctor and getting that baby taken out. They know this because they have the numbers. They can see the numbers. You and I can't see the numbers unless we dig for it. I've dug it up. Their numbers of abortions are higher than minorities. That's what all of that's about. And how they're packaging certain situations, you know, like the abortion thing. They make it about Christianity and the right to life. The illegal thing, which is really racism, they don't want any more minorities coming here. They already have to deal with the blacks. So now they got the Hispanics coming here too. So what that's doing is they're trying to patriotism. We want to defend our border. You know, instead of just flat out saying, man, look, our numbers are shrinking. We don't want any more minorities here. Matter of fact, how about we go to Sweden or England and get more whites to come here? They don't want to do that because the whites in Sweden and English, they don't want to come here. They satisfied with living in their country. Understand how this is working. If we had an influx of white people coming from Switzerland or Germany, like we did in the 40s, they wouldn't say a word. Because those whites would add to the population of the whites that are already here. But since you got Hispanics coming across the border, they're in trouble. Because not only are blacks having more babies than whites, now they have to deal with the Hispanics. I hope you guys learned something from today's show. And, you know, we'll be back next week with the Daily Read. And I'm out.
The business, motherfucker.
The Daily Read.
Bringing the business.